I'm Elisa Parenti in Washington, and you're watching Bloomberg Technology. Here's a check of your first word news. The Washington Post is reporting that special counsel Robert Mueller will likely seek an interview with President Trump. The president is reportedly comfortable with an interview, believing it, and questions would end them about alleged collusion with Russia in the 2016 election. The Post cites sources who say his legal team is discussing how to set limits. Oprah Winfrey says she is not considering a White House run in 2020. Winfrey's speech at the Golden Globes fueled rumors about her interest in the nation's highest office, but after accepting that Lifetime Achievement Award, the billionaire media mogul tells Bloomberg she does not plan to run. The United States is ending temporary protected status for immigrants from El Salvador. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen said the humanitarian crisis stemming from the 2001 earthquake in El Salvador no longer exists. Protections for tens of thousands of Salvadorans expire next year. And British Prime Minister Theresa May's plan to refresh her cabinet ahead of a high-pressure year for Brexit has hit a snag. Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt will stay on after refusing a new role. Education Secretary Justine Greening resigned altogether. Global news 24 hours a day, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Elisa Parenti, and this is Bloomberg.
I'm Emily Chang, and this is Bloomberg Technology. Coming up, GoPro takes a dive. We speak with CEO Nick Woodman after the company cuts its revenue forecast and slashes jobs. Plus, cryptocurrencies off to a rocky start in 2018. Bitcoin slumping as much as 17%, helping to drag down smaller rivals Ripple and Litecoin. And tech firms are descending on Las Vegas for the Consumer Electronics Show, where driverless and electric cars are dominating the buzz. First, to our lead. GoPro's challenges are coming to a head. The company missed its fourth quarter sales guidance, signaling that revamped cameras and price increases are not sparking revenue growth. As a result, shares tumbled more than 12%, its worst performance in a year. M&A is the likely next step for the struggling camera maker, but GoPro CEO Nick Woodman spoke to Bloomberg's Selena Wang and denied earlier reports that they've hired JP Morgan for a potential sale. Take a listen.
JP Morgan is in fact our banker, but we have not engaged them to help us sell the company. And, you know, with that said, if there were an opportunity for GoPro to partner up with a larger organization that could help us scale the company, scale our brand and our reach to consumers, then that's certainly something that we would consider. But it's not something that we're actively engaged in at the moment.
Do you think you will want to actively engage in this? Is there some catalyst you see coming? Have any potential suitors reached out?
Well, I'll answer the question insofar as would we engage in something like this? This is something that we explore from time to time, as it's our job to grow the business in the most strategic way possible, and that definitely is one way to do it. So it's not a new topic at GoPro. But I can't share any more information than that.
Nick, can you talk a little bit about organizations that you would love to work with if theoretically something did work out in terms of a sale or a partnership? I can think of any number of consumer electronics companies that GoPro could fit well into. How are you thinking about it?
Well, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I would say that being a company that is enabling people to capture and share themselves in exciting ways. GoPro is a very social company, and we have one of the strongest brands in the world that is very well regarded for our ability to help people capture and share their active lifestyles. And so we're primarily focused on spreading our brand and spreading our hardware and software solutions to reach as many consumers around the world as possible. So to us, scale is very important.
Now, shifting gears to today's announcement, it seems like GoPro is steadily continuing to narrow its vision. Last year, the entertainment unit shut down. Now the drone business is closing. So how should we understand the product roadmap and revenue diversification of GoPro?
I think what you're seeing from us is that we are listening to our customers more and more, and we're investing in development of products and solutions that our customers want from us. And whereas in the past, I'm even on record as having said in the past that one of the things that makes GoPro strong is that we are our customer, and that in the past we developed products that we really wanted, and that seemed to resonate well with the market. We realize now that we're in the business to build products for our customers, and we need to identify what they want and go and invent for them. That can be difficult because as you're inventing new solutions, be it hardware or software, the consumer doesn't always know what they want. But that's our job, to read the data and understand the trends and build for our customers. Our customers loved the entertainment that GoPro enables through the content that we produce today and the content that our customers produce, but they didn't need us to become a full-blown entertainment business. Our customers have told us that they really love buying our cameras from us, and while a passionate number of them wanted to buy drones from us, the majority of our customers want to buy GoPros that connect to a great app experience, and that's what we're investing in moving forward.
There was weak demand for the Hero 5 camera, even though GoPro had spent significantly on marketing for the product. So analysts would say that this means the market is rapidly commoditizing for these action cameras. But what would you say to that?
Well, we've got more data now that shows that we have a larger percentage of repeat customers than we thought we did, which is terrific on one hand because there's very strong customer loyalty, but it also shows us that pricing is increasingly important, and that with Hero 5 Black and with Hero 5 Session, both year-old products being sold in the 2017 holiday quarter for the same price they were launched at back in 2016 did not resonate very well, because either a decent percentage of our customers already own that camera, and those who were sitting on the sidelines waiting to upgrade don't feel very good about upgrading to year-old technology for the same price it was a year ago. So that lesson's learned, and when we lowered the price $100 on both Hero 5 products, we saw very sharp increases in sell-through, more than 2 times lift in sell-through of Hero 5 Black and 3 times sales lift in Hero 5 Session. So lesson learned. And we also applied that same thinking to Hero 6 Black, our flagship, which was already selling very well and meeting expectations at $499. We expect sell-through to increase significantly as we've lowered the price of that to $399 as of yesterday, Sunday.
Now, Nick, there have been several rounds of layoffs over the past year, and now with this most recent reduction, there will be fewer than 1,000 employees. Should we expect to see further reductions to reach that target level of operating expenses?
No. The recent OPEX reductions, which involved a headcount reduction, get us to the necessary sub $400 million OPEX level that will allow, we believe, GoPro to be profitable in the second half of 2018. And we're seeing really good sell-through of our products. So as long as sales trends continue as forecasted, we feel like we'll be in good shape.
That was GoPro CEO Nick Woodman speaking with Bloomberg's Selena Wang. Meantime, tech firms big and small are flocking to Las Vegas for the Consumer Electronics Show. Driverless and electric cars are dominating, with Uber and Volkswagen showcasing the wonders of AI on the road. And all eyes will be on Intel CEO Brian Krzanich, who is set to deliver a keynote speech. Our Bloomberg tech editor, Alistair Barr, joins me now here with more. So let's start with Brian Krzanich. What are we expecting him to say about this incredibly pervasive chip flaw that, as we understand, affects basically every device that we're all using?
Well, he better say something. I think that's the main point. I don't think he was planning to a couple of weeks ago, even though Intel has known about this for over 6 months. So I think what he's going to have to say is he's going to have to make all their major customers, which are any company from Microsoft to Google to Amazon, he's going to have to make it very clear that when they put these patches in and put these fixes in place, which they prepared, the performance of, be it a personal computer or an internet server or a phone, those things aren't going to slow down a lot. That's what everyone wants to hear. There's been a lot of debate in the last week about whether these fixes are going to really slow machines down. So if he comes out and says, you know, his support for my argument and it's not going to slow everything down, that's going to be good. He may have to be a bit more open about the fact that in certain instances machines are going to be a bit slower.
And to be fair, you know, this affects a lot of other chip makers as well, from Qualcomm to ARM and AMD. What are they saying?
So AMD actually broke ranks with Intel on the day that it was announced, and they said that their chips aren't really affected by it at all. Again, you could look at a statement like that and compare it to what Intel has said, and it's kind of a similar thing, which is all these companies are saying, well, for the majority of situations, it's not going to really slow down things much, but in certain instances, it might slow it down. That's not really giving anyone much confidence right now.
All right, so what are the other highlights we're seeing out of CES so far? Cars.
Cars. Yeah. NVIDIA announced a deal where they're going to get their chips into VW and Uber self-driving cars. There's a recent one we were just looking at a few minutes ago from Samsung, which has been, you know, not involved in this market at all really up till now, and it's probably the last major tech company to get involved. I would say that's pretty depressingly slow and late for them, but it's still you know, there isn't a clear winner yet. Let's put it that way.
Right. Samsung announcing DriveLine, an open, modular, and scalable hardware, software-based platform to allow automakers to build advanced and customized cars. I mean, obviously they're a late entrant, but would you say in the race for driverless cars right now, anyone can have a piece of this pie? It's anyone's game?
Well, the market's going to be completely utterly huge, so that's good for someone like Samsung coming late. But the worry for them is that in order to do this really well and actually have software that makes it work all the time, it's going to take years. So they are quite a way behind, I would say.
All right, well, we are monitoring CES as we speak. We'll have much more tomorrow. Alistair Barr, our tech editor, thank you so much for stopping by. We'll have much more coverage from CES Tuesday. You can tune in for our interviews with Sony's Kazuo Hirai and Renault's Carlos Ghosn. Coming up, the crypto craze of 2017 seems to have died down due to regulation concerns. What to expect from digital currencies in the new year? That's next. And Bloomberg Technology is live streaming on Twitter. You can check us out at Technology weekdays, 5 p.m. in New York, 2 p.m. in San Francisco. This is Bloomberg. A stock we are watching, Seagate Technology climbing 16% after Value Street Research suggested the company may own more than 4% of Ripple. Ripple is currently the third most valuable currency behind Bitcoin and Ethereum. Meantime, the Securities and Exchange Commission is cracking down on a Hong Kong-based company that benefited from 2017's cryptocurrency fever to the tune of a 900% stock surge. The SEC is suspending trading in shares of UBI Blockchain Internet due to, quote, unexplained market activity. The company lacking in revenues and even a marketable product that reached a $3 billion market cap before concerns about executives' history were raised in a story by Bloomberg News. Joining us now, Jahan Chu, managing partner of Hong Kong-based Kinetic Capital. Chu started investing in Bitcoin in 2013 when the digital asset saw the first major rally and has since started a venture capital firm investing in blockchain technologies. Also with us in New York, the author of that story, editor-at-large Corey Johnson. So Corey, you're making waves today. Tell us what happened with this UBI story.
Yeah, even the SEC is listening to Bloomberg News. That's a good thing, I guess. Fascinating company that has no product yet and virtually no operations. And as of its last SEC filing, just 18 employees. And I think maybe the most interesting thing is, as a blockchain company, you might expect people with a history in computer networking or currency exchanges or payment systems. Their background was in bedwetting. They had a product called the urine stopper at their prior company, at least the CEO did, and a handful of executives, indeed only 4 executives listed in the filing. 3 of those 4 executives worked for American Oriental Bioengineering that had a $1 billion market cap company that sold a bedwetting patch called the urine stopper. That was the expertise that led to this company that at one time, this Bitcoin company, this blockchain company, I should say, that had a $3 billion market cap with no product yet. So the SEC apparently taking a look at this as well. Of course, we took a look at this in a story about bedwetting and blockchain on Bloomberg.com. You can find that story. It's an interesting one. But I think it really speaks to the speculative fever around Bitcoin, that anyone with any kind of crazy background can create something that looks like it might have great value and attract investors to that.
Jahan, what's your take on this story?
Well, I don't really know much about UBI other than that they're in Hong Kong. But what I can say is that this is really indicative of how the entire market is reacting to the phenomenon of Bitcoin and blockchain and cryptocurrency trading. And I think it's really important to note out of this story that the SEC did step in, and I think it's a good thing that they did, to investigate. Now, there's been no necessarily kind of sign of wrongdoing, but they're adding guideposts, they're adding investigation, they're adding some type of structure to the market to try and grow it in a more safe and I think sustainable way. Now, as far as UBI, I think that they're doing what they're doing, and maybe they're related to blockchain, maybe they're not. I have no idea. But I think that what we're seeing in 2018 is really the year of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency trading becoming a social phenomenon. And that's different.
What does that mean?
It means that I was in New York and I was in line at a bagel shop. I was in line at Whole Foods. I was eating noodles, and everybody was talking about trading cryptocurrency.
But does that mean it has inherent value, is the question?
No, trading does not mean it has inherent value, but what it does mean is that it has a massive onslaught of attention. And these attention economies that turn into actual development and add support and add liquidity to these markets can develop into meaningful and lasting type of development for applications. And at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Blockchain technology is about software that's being built, and cryptocurrency trading is just what we see on the surface.
Now,
Emily,
Corey,
what I just would add is that
God
is in the details, right? So one would think that a Hong Kong listed company might be in Hong Kong, which Jahan just said. And in fact, even that's more interesting. Their lawyer is a guy in Chicago. His business partner is a guy in Las Vegas. When I called their New York headquarters, it rang on someone's cell phone. When I called their main number, it rang just disconnected. So things are much more interesting here than they seem, and I think that that's true probably of all these investments. Indeed, the differences between Bitcoin and Ripple are substantial. It's worth finding out for investors to really understand what lies beneath these things, to try to determine what the intrinsic value is, not just guess if there's a greater fool who will pay a higher price.
Meantime, Jahan, cryptocurrencies running into headwinds, not just in the U.S., but also in China, with this talk about the Chinese government cutting off the power supply to Bitcoin miners. I mean, how serious do you think that is?
I think this is really the kind of final strike of the Chinese government's desire to reset the entire story of blockchain. I think what they want to do is clear the decks, and they've done it with exchanges, they've done it with ICOs, and now they're doing it with mining. I think ultimately they understand the value and the potential and the utility for society, for the economy, for industry to build anew, and I think that's what they're doing. I don't think this is the end of exchanges. I don't think it's the end of ICOs. This is merely the Chinese government resetting and taking control of what they actually believe will be a truly transformational technology.
Meantime, other cryptocurrencies getting dragged down today. Corey, you spoke with the CEO of Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse. Take a listen to what he had to say.
There's no doubt 2017 has been, amongst other things, the year of crypto. And within the year of crypto, XRP has outperformed every other digital asset out there. So year to date, as that chart showed, we're up about 20,000%.
That's from December 27th, Corey, but, Ripple going down with some of the others today. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think the volatility in these, I'm trying to not say something obvious. It's obviously been volatile with these with these currencies or these trades, but I think that what our traditional lens of looking at the volatility in equities, for example, say, wow, it's down a lot since December 27th, or down a lot in the last hour. I took last week off, so I looked at my Bloomberg terminal. Let me show you my Bloomberg terminal. When we look at what happened to Ripple trading over the last day, yeah, sure enough, it's down 11%. But if I change this chart to, let's say, the last 14 days, so there's an intraday chart for 14 days, which on the Bloomberg terminal is a GIP 18. Well, look, it's up. It's up a lot. It's up, 100%, 38% in the last 14 days. So I think that one of the interesting things is the volatility that we've seen tends to take the headlines. But the long-term rise that we've seen over the course of long-term, if long-term's a year, really tells more of the story. And I think more to the point, again, when you look into the details and you see the great differences between Ripple and Bitcoin, between the XRP and the like-minded blockchain technology, but the very different ways that they work, the different ways that they trade, and the different problems they're trying to solve, you find a much more interesting story. And again, that long-term lens, even if 1 year is long-term, is not the lens that we're used to applying when it comes to moves in equities, but maybe the appropriate one to apply, even though interestingly, the futures contracts have not reduced the volatility in the trade in Bitcoin.
So, Jahan, you told us that Bitcoin would hit $50,000 by the end of the year. You said that last month. Do you believe that will still happen?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think what we're seeing right now in the volatility is the market is inhaling and exhaling, and as Corey was saying, what we're really seeing in the long term is the body of blockchain, the application side, is continuing to develop. And I really think in 2018, not only will we see $50,000 price levels for Bitcoin, but I think what we're going to be seeing is cryptocurrency and blockchain technology emerging from its adolescence, its awkward, ugly adolescence, and really coming into its own as an empowered and self-confident, self-aware technology. And we're not going to be talking about how blockchain is impacting the markets. We're going to be talking about how blockchain is impacting the world.
And learning how to socialize, to use your earlier metaphor. All right, Jahan Chu of Kinetic Capital, thank you so much. Corey Johnson, our own editor-at-large, thank you, and for that UBI story as well. Coming up, streaming services take home high honors at the Golden Globes. We'll give you the list of winners next. This is Bloomberg. Sony Music Publishing and Facebook have signed a deal for online videos. The deal will allow Facebook users to post songs from artists like Ed Sheeran and Taylor Swift from a catalog of 3 million songs. The multi-year accord will also give songwriters the chance to earn royalties when their music is used on Facebook and Instagram. Financial terms of the deal were not disclosed. Could mesmerizing qualities of the iPhone foster a public health crisis? Two big shareholders of Apple think so. Activist investor Jana Partners and the California State Teachers Retirement System urged Apple to create ways for parents to restrict children's access to their mobile phones. They also want the company to study the effects of heavy usage on mental health. An Apple spokesperson declined to comment. Big winner of the Golden Globes, streaming services. Amazon Studios bounced back after a rough 2017, losing its studio head, Roy Price, after allegations of sexual harassment. Amazon's The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel won Best Comedy Series and Best Actress in a Comedy TV Series. Hulu also racked up 2 Golden Globes. The Handmaid's Tale won for Best TV Drama, as well as Best Actress in a Drama TV Series. Netflix garnered 9 nominations, but only won a single award, with Master of None star Aziz Ansari earning Best Actor in a TV comedy. Coming up, we look at the intersection of venture capital and biotech, the year that was, with medical breakthroughs and what could be coming in 2018. That is next. This is Bloomberg.
I'm Elisa Parenti in Washington, and you're watching Bloomberg Technology. Here's a check of your first word news. President Trump is very close to picking his nominee for vice chairman of the Federal Reserve. That's according to a White House official speaking on condition of anonymity. The official also said that Richard Clarida, a managing partner at PIMCO, has been ruled out. The central bank's number 2 job has been vacant since Stanley Fischer retired in October. Federal regulators have rejected Energy Secretary Rick Perry's plan to bail out struggling coal and nuclear plants. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission today terminated a proceeding that was considering a directive outlined by Perry. The U.S. Supreme Court has left intact a Mississippi law that curbs gay rights. The state measure says businesses and government workers there can refuse to provide services to gay and transgender people on religious grounds. An appeals panel had previously found that the law's challengers failed to show it would harm the LGBT community. And in Iran, President Hassan Rouhani is challenging hardliners with calls for more freedoms. Rouhani says the anger that led to a week of anti-government protests exposed the need for freedoms that he's been pushing for. Conservatives portrayed the demonstrations as proof that Rouhani's economic policies have failed to improve living standards. Global news 24 hours a day, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Elisa Parenti. This is Bloomberg, just after 5:30 p.m. here in Washington, 6:30 Tuesday morning now in Hong Kong. We are joined by Bloomberg's David Ingles with a look at the markets. David, good morning to you. Not much to move the markets here in the States. How about by you?
Well, we're looking at a few data points here in the Asia Pacific. I also just want to remind our viewers as well, the North and the South meet today for the first time since 2015. So in terms of catalysts, we do have a few on the table. But again, investors here, as they've been really for the past, 3 months or so, are focused on valuations. We're kicking off earnings season across some of the big markets in the Asia Pacific this week, Japan, South Korea, to name a few. Samsung headlines things there when it comes to that space, and about within the next hour or so comes out with preliminary earnings. We might get a 24,000 there on the Nikkei for the first time since 1991. Very quickly, a quick look across the currency space. Rare dollar strength coming through. There we go, below 120 there for the euro. The loonie, of course, many traders expecting the Bank of Canada to move, so we're looking at a little bit of a pickup there in implied vol. And just very quickly, as I mentioned, South Korea very much in focus. There's the substantial strength coming through in the South Korean currency of late. I'm David Ingles. That's a wrap of your markets early here. More from Bloomberg Technology next.
This is Bloomberg Technology. I'm Emily Chang. 2017 saw some major milestones in the biotech industry, including 46 newly approved drugs, making that the second most approved ever in 1 year, as well as the U.S. approval of gene therapy for a rare form of blindness. One of the top VC players in that field is Third Rock Ventures. In the 10 years since its inception, the firm has raised nearly $2 billion and launched over 40 medical and science-based companies. Joining us now from the J.P. Morgan Healthcare Conference in San Francisco, happening right now, Alexis Borisy, a partner at Third Rock Ventures and the author of dozens of biotech patents. Alexis, great to have you back. You were here on the show last year at this same time. You made some predictions for 2017. You said it would be a big year for biotech M&A. That proved true. What are your predictions for 2018?
Hey, Emily, it's great to be joining you from the craziness of J.P. Morgan here in the hallways again. Hoping that 2018 is going to be another very positive year. As you said, 2017 was a great year for approvals and for some incredible results for patients. 2018, we're hoping, will that M&A wave really appear or not in 2018 is one of the big questions. Meanwhile, we hope the fundamental science and innovation and results for patients is going to continue coming along strong.
So if your hope ends up coming to fruition, what are some of your deal-making goals and what kind of deals do you expect to see?
Well, innovative biotech companies like what we invest at Third Rock Ventures have really become the fuel for the global pharmaceutical industry. So big companies at this point, 2/3 to 70% of their pipeline come from the small companies. So those big companies have that hunger for innovation. So we'd love to see a series of M&As across different product categories, whether that's in the precision oncology side or in the neurosciences side. The picking up of those companies in the $1 to $10 billion market cap range, there wasn't a lot of that in 2017, not as much as some people were hoping for. I think it's one of the big questions people are talking about. Are we going to see that here in the first half of 2018?
So what impact do you think the Trump administration and a new health care plan will have?
Well, the tax reform that was just passed through, that had been a big overhang where people were saying, was capital going to be repatriated or not? And some people thought a lot of large companies were staying on the sidelines a little bit through 2017. Now that's been removed. There's a favorable environment. Let's see how that actually plays out. On healthcare itself, I think fundamentally, as I said, there remains a fundamental hunger for innovation. That matches up well with just sort of the great progress that's being seen in the innovative biotech sector.
So how do you think that'll impact drug pricing in general?
You know, this, of course, is always one of the great big questions out there. And if you ask me sort of, what do I see as the two big risks of 2018? Number one is, does the M&A show up that people are looking for? Number two, does there become another big thing about drug pricing, about how drug companies are getting away with murder? For the fundamental innovation to happen, like what we do at Third Rock Ventures is we get involved in creating companies that we think can offer breakthrough medicines, we have to believe that if we start down the path of the 10-year cycle that costs multiple billions of dollars to go create those drugs, that society will pay for those at the end. So when things get mixed up, where some people are saying, prices are too high, and you mix the question of price hikes on older drugs with paying for fundamental innovation, that can cause problems in the early stage part of the cycle. But optimistically, yeah, go ahead.
Well, speaking of, you're talking about just how long the life cycle of some of these biotech companies are. Do you expect some of your own portfolio companies to hit the public markets this year? I mean, sometimes these cycles, as you say, can be frustratingly long.
Yeah. So at Third Rock over the last 10 years, we've helped create 46 companies. We've had 16 of those go public, and 6 of them from an M&A perspective. If markets stay as they feel right now, then we would expect that there would be several more companies in our portfolio go public here in 2018, where we'd see maybe 2 to 4 companies from the portfolio go public.
So, when it comes to your own portfolio, what are some major trends that you're going to be watching out for and advising your companies on?
Yeah, sort of things that we're looking for that we think are very exciting. We continue to see great activity in precision oncology, and we imagine that precision medicine coming to the whole field of immuno-oncology. I think precision medicine meets immuno-oncology will be a big trend in 2018 and going forward. Precision medicine outside of oncology, particularly in areas of immunology, various autoimmune diseases, we think can be a very big theme. And regenerative medicine, actually sort of rebuilding and restoring parts of the body.
So you think this could be a big year for cancer therapy in general?
I think 2017 certainly was. I think we see that theme continuing. One of the companies in our portfolio that we look at that we could see becoming a public company this year would be Neon, which is focused in that personalized medicine, cancer vaccines, and personalized medicine T-cell based products. We also see Magenta Therapeutics, again, in that regenerative medicine side of the equation.
All right, Alexis Borsi, partner at Third Rock Ventures. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll have to have you back a year from now to see if your predictions for 2018 held true. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll have much more from the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference all week long with Eli Lilly Chair and CEO David Ricks, Tuesday, 10 a.m. Eastern. And Wednesday, we will be speaking with Cigna CEO David Cordani at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, the engineer fired by Google after criticizing its diversity policies is now suing the company, claiming an anti-conservative bias at the parent company, Alphabet. James Damore, seen here speaking with Bloomberg after his filing, he joined on this show, claims that a class action lawsuit that he and others at the internet giant were harassed over their conservative political views. Damore was fired in August after penning a 10-page memo claiming that women were unfairly celebrated at Google while white men were reportedly mocked. In a written statement, Google said it looks forward to defending against Mr. Damore's lawsuit in court. Coming up, the French government is pushing a new message to investors and entrepreneurs. France welcomes the business world with new reforms on the way to push the country forward. We'll discuss what's ahead for the country next. This is Bloomberg. A stock we are watching, Tesla stock rose more than 6% in Monday's session, its biggest intraday jump since August 3rd. Tesla gaining back the losses after reporting weak Model 3 numbers last week. Baird analyst Ben Kallo said the Model 3 production ramp has been somewhat de-risked after Tesla shifted its targets and has made it more challenging to short the stock. In Europe, France is trying to remake itself as a hub for tech and startups after the election of Emmanuel Macron this past spring. But France is facing challenges as it tries to tap into the global tech boom, regulation, and attitudes towards startup culture, just to name a few. Pascal Cagney is helping to bring change to the country as head of business France. Before that, Cagney was general manager and vice president for Apple Europe, Middle East, and Africa, then founded his own firm, C4 Ventures. Cagney is now with us right here in San Francisco. So you spent the last 2 decades working in London. Obviously, this is before Margaret Vestager and a lot of these new regulatory concerns we're hearing about. How would you say things have changed since you started working at Apple in 2000?
Now, maybe there is figures which summarize the change, right? In 5 years, we moved from less than 10% to up to 50% of the 18 to 25 years old French people, French young adults, willing to join the entrepreneurship revolution, right? The entrepreneur is becoming very much the icon of the modern times. You've got actually last year in France more venture capital which has been put into the country than in any other countries. So the cultural change that we talk about is massive, right? Today, when you are doing one of the grandes écoles in France, half of them wants to basically create their own starter, better to join one of the beautiful large companies we have. So the change is here.
So how would you describe then the impact of increasing regulation and regulatory concerns?
But I'm not sure you really can talk about regulations. If anything, we are right now working with the President Macron about reducing this, right? You do appreciate that we have been bringing a lot of flexibility to the work employment laws to allow people to have a lot more predictability about what they are going to deal with in the futures. We've got actually a lower tax across the lines, lower corporate tax, no more wealth tax, and also want figures for the capital gain tax at 30%. That's the plan, that's what's happening. You've got a massive shift also into the political landscape with a lot of newcomers. So I think France in a row, and if there is a decade where you need to bet on France, is the decade ahead of us, right?
What do you think about the actions coming from the European Competition Commissioner and Margaret Vestager herself?
No, they do the jobs. Clearly, we need to create market rules for the place. Europe hasn't been very well known for the ability to offer a frame which is coherent on objectives. And yes, some of the GAFA has been under scrutiny. It's happening yesterday, today, it will continue. But all in all, you need to appreciate that it's really much a free market with a free flow of goods and people, which allows the people to recreate entrepreneurs, right? In France, you've got an excess of 10,000 startups which has been creating lately. When you look at the fast technology moving companies, France now is all on the place and on the lead. So I think things really change, and you need to acknowledge that in California, which has been the role model for in excess of 2 decades, as you said.
President Macron has said he wants France to become a landscape of unicorns, and right now there's currently only one, BlaBlaCar. How does he intend to birth more unicorns?
In fact, if I may say, there is a few more than that. You can also add Sigfox. You may also add OVH on the server side. And you've got also Criteo, which became one and actually get public on the NASDAQ. So it's true that the unicorn is not yet the
still
magic
a rare
words,
breed, right?
But you got, I wouldn't mistake saying that there is close to 40 across Europe. We actually talk about France, but overall we talk about Europe. We would like to see France as essentially the entry gate to go after this amazing European market. Not mentioning that you've got also a 400 million large Arab world, which is not far away out of the reach of Europe, right? So yes, we're at the start of the journey, but there is always a start. I think everything looks incredibly good. The GDP growth is better. The mindset has changed. We really take benefit of the platform which has been created over the last 10 years here in California. So I'm very optimistic.
So what do you personally hope to accomplish, and what do you bring specifically from your background at a company like Apple, which is clearly a global company with, that has to play to a lot of different markets? How do you use all of that in your new role?
For 1 or 2 decades, I heard a lot about the French bashing, right? So what I want to state, coming in front of you here today and in the Valley for a week, right, going also at CS in Las Vegas, is to explain that France means business, that the word entrepreneur has actually mean created in France and do have taken all of these cents at the minute I'm talking about. So I think it's about France mean business. France is actually very much welcoming foreign investments and talent. And the proof is that if you go on Eureka Park, which is the place where you got a startup, we've got the largest contingent at the CES in Las Vegas of a company. That has been the case for 3 or 4 years in a row. We have got in excess of 50% more companies. So it's really about carrying the message that the things are changing, and the figures are here to demonstrate it.
All right, Pascal Cagny, C4 Ventures founder, thank you so much for joining us now with Business France. Great to have you here on the show. Coming up, you don't need to be in the NFL or the NBA to be a sports star anymore. We look at the multi-million-dollar esports industry and how it is taking over China. Next, this is Bloomberg. Esports is big business around the world, with revenue last year of nearly $700 million. Audiences are expected to reach 580 million in the next 2 years. And much of that growth comes from China, where the average Chinese gamer spends around $140 a year. One of the top draws in that realm is Riot Games' League of Legends. Bloomberg spoke with Johnson Ye, the company's head of China esports, at the UBS China conference in Shanghai, about what new innovations they have in store.
We just announced our franchising, which is the end of promotion and relegation. Now we have long-term partners who's investing into our sport for the long run, and we now get a lot of more professionalized owners who's working with us, building the brands and really building the sport together with us. The other thing that we're doing is the home and away system for our LPL, our League of Legends Pro League. So home and away means we are actually operating in 4 cities this year: Shanghai, Hangzhou, Chengdu, and Chongqing. And then we'll be working together with the home teams there, and then we'll be able to broaden the reach to the fans there, build deeper fandom, as well as strengthen the ecosystem, because they get to work with all the industries locally in those markets. So we are looking much more like a professional sport this year.
Give us some numbers. What are you talking about towards the end of the year in terms of audience numbers, in terms of players, in terms of revenues? Give us some guidance into just how big this market is going to be at the end of the year.
Sure. So 2017, our total number of hours watched for League of Legends eSport is 3 billion hours. The most watched game during our World Champion Series, which was hosted in China, was 80 million unique viewers. That's higher than any sport out there for the entire year. No other sport has that many unique viewers for the entire year. So it is you can say that in many regards, it is the most watched sport in China. And in terms of revenue, we can't disclose too much the revenue figures, but we are pretty proud to say that League of Legends Pro League in China is the highest revenue league for any esport in the world, and then we're also probably the closest to profitable.
And how are you broadening the accessibility to this sporting sector, as you call it, beyond hardcore gamers? How are you pushing it out? How are you growing your audience?
So what we're realizing is that there's already a lot of viewers. We estimate that just League of Legends eSport viewers is about 70 million in China, and eSport viewers in general is about 220 million. So these are really large numbers. That's actually getting to the scale of mass acceptance already. So what we think is that we still want to provide the best sport viewing experience to the hardcore gamers, but at the same time, we can provide an experience that the hardcore gamers and the sport audience can like alike. Then that will be great for us as well. So what we're doing is to continue better the production quality, the quality of our product, making sure that we have better analysts, and then better games, more competitive leagues. That's what we'll continue to do, and then we'll continue to market to the hardcore gamers and make sure that the mass audience actually can understand our game better.
Is the push to get esports included in, for example, the Asian Games 2018 in Indonesia, is that part of this attempt to broaden the audience? And how close are you to getting esports included in the Asian Games?
So for Asian Games, it's a long story, but it is something that we are discussing with the committee there. I do think that it will have a strong symbolic symbol for esports as a whole, and of course for League of Legends esports. So I definitely look forward to that. In the end, League of Legends is the most watched esport, and I do think that having the most watched game and most played game for esport, representing the Asian game will be something quite unique and quite meaningful.
How do you respond to those who say, look, this isn't a sport, this is a sedentary activity, it's addictive, it's keeping lots of young people sat at desks for hours on end, this is not a positive or healthy transition that's happening?
Well, it really depends on how you define sports. To me, sports is about having a competitive experience, having a team-based or even individual-based experience that can really excite the audience, that are players that the normal sport audience want to watch. And as long as that's defined, I think actually anything can be a sport. So for us, right, we have a sport activity that fits all that criteria. It's highly competitive, takes a lot of training, really deep mastery curve, and now we have a thriving pro league scene and the ecosystem built around it.
That was Riot Games head of China eSports, Johnson Ye, at the UBS China conference in Shanghai. And that does it for this edition of Bloomberg Technology. A reminder, we are live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Technology, weekdays, 5 p.m. in New York, 2 p.m. in San Francisco. That is all for now. This is Bloomberg.